Welcome to Mormon Book Reviews, or an evangelical encounters the restoration. I'm your host, Stephen Pynakker, and I'm welcoming back to the program author Derek Hutchins. Author Derek Hutchins, hold up that book that you came on my
Yeah.
show for. We did a special Halloween episode and it was called The Resurrection Box, A Tale of Mormon Horror. And so you write in the horror genre. And it's interesting because on that episode that we talked about, was how Christian horror movies are, that a lot of the themes in horror movies are actually Christian. You know, the idea of like vampires and zombies are kind of like the dark side of the resurrection, right? It's almost like the devil's version of the resurrection, right? In immortality. And how so often, like The Exorcist is a devoutly Catholic film and it's informed by Catholic and Christian theology throughout, and how so many of these movies that you watch, even the idea of Christian imagery is strewn throughout Stephen King novels and various other places, that you can't do horror right unless you have an understanding of Christianity. There's this idea of darkness and good. There's a lot going on there that informs the horror genre. And the reason why we're having Derek on is because he's actually now, in addition to writing a book that he wrote, The Resurrection Box, he also is going to do a horror movie now. Now, we're actually, the reason I had Derek come on was because he's doing a GoFundMe program. Before we talk about that, Derek, you're an awesome human being. Welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me, Steve. It's good to be here.
Sorry
Yeah.
about the long intro. It's just been a while since we talked. And then I'm wearing the Vote for Pedro shirt because if you watch the Halloween episode, I was dressed as Napoleon Dynamite. I'm not wearing the wig today, but I had the wig and the glasses on. I'll leave a link at the end card of this episode so you can watch that Halloween special we did about a year and a half ago. Derek, so before we get started about this movie, I just want you to maybe talk about your fascination with the horror genre and what made you decide to actually enter into the actual movie producing of horror movies as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've always loved horror. Growing up, I'm wearing my Goosebumps shirt today. Uh, Grew up reading the Goosebumps books, and that kind of was my gateway into horror. I have always loved it. And my real goal has been to be a filmmaker. Writing books is kind of a side thing that I do just to get some stories out there. But the real goal, I went to film school. My real goal has always been to make movies. And so I kind of realized at this point in my life that I think I need to be a little bit more aggressive in my approach to making movies. I'm a writer, but I decided that I'm going to start directing as well. So this is one of my first attempts to direct a movie. So this is a combination of two of my two favorite interests, religion and horror. Um, and so I decided to make this short film. It's called The Witch of Endor. For those who may not be familiar with the story, it's a direct adaptation of a story from the Bible, which can be found in 1 Samuel chapter 28. It's a story of King Saul, who's the predecessor to King David. King Saul kind of makes some errors. He gets on the outs with God, and he decides to go to a witch, and he has this witch call up the spirit of the prophet Samuel to try and get some guidance about what he should do because he knows he's going to be replaced as king. And Samuel basically tells him, "Hey, we already told you you're going to be replaced, and you're going to die tomorrow, actually." And so that's the story we're adapting.
Wow, it's so fascinating because within the context of Mormonism, the idea of talking to dead relatives or seeing like people in the temple, that have since passed, is really like a really big thing in the Mormon culture. Whereas in the evangelical world, we don't know really what to do with that story because it's almost like, how could the witch have the power to conjure a dead prophet? And so a lot of what I think a lot of people, and this is just going by as I remember it being explained to me as a kid, that they were like, well, that really wasn't Samuel, that was a demon. And I've heard that theory. But then when Samuel's saying you're going to die tomorrow, that I don't think Satan has the ability to see the future, nor a demon. So it does seem to imply that this is Samuel, which is a fascinating way to look at it, right? So have you tackled that? Because again, like the idea, like how is this possible? Do you kind of explore that? Is that something you're going to explore in the movie?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought that up. There is a lot of ambiguity in terms of what is actually going on in the story. And I don't think, I mean, members of the church, I don't think we're totally clear on it. I don't think anyone's really clear on exactly what's going on. There's different ways to interpret it. You could interpret it as the witch, maybe she does have actual powers and she brings up the prophet Samuel. Maybe it is a demon. Maybe it's actually Samuel. Um, did God just send Samuel, and the witch doesn't have any powers at all? There's definitely lots of ways to look at it, and we try to keep it in the film ambiguous, just so you can kind of reach your own interpretations, however you want to interpret it.
Oh, that's fascinating. I love the way you look at that because it does bring up a lot of issues, right? And
Yeah,
I think probably I think maybe I may have even heard this back growing up. Now I think about it, that people would say, well, yeah, the witch had no power, but God sent Samuel, and maybe that was the way of God communicating, because Paul turned his back on God, and God was like, here, I'll show you, um,
yeah,
and let him know, like, you're gonna die tomorrow. And so that could be a way of lking at it too. It's just fascinating just to kind of contemplate all this. So you have what is like a GoFundMe campaign in which you need to raise some funds for this. And so why don't you do share screen here,
yeah.
and
Let me share my screen.
we'll have links in the description, folks, for where you can donate to fund this Christian horror movie. And this is let's see, are you a fan of religious horror? Well, so are we. We're adapting First Samuel chapter 28, or 1 Samuel if you're Donald Trump, directly from the Bible into an epic short horror film. This is one of the oldest ghost stories ever recorded and deserves to be live on the screen. Okay, so, deserves to live on the screen. Okay, I see.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
as of this taping, it's 13 hours and 56 minutes away. You
13
said
days. 13 days.
13 days. Okay. And so we're going to probably post this obviously before the deadline. And of course, you're 86% there. So folks, what we want to do,
Yeah.
we want to get them over the top here. We want to be able to help fund this movie. And we want to and of course, if you hit your goals, of course, you'll take more. I mean, the more the better,
Oh
right?
yeah.
That's the minimum, but really any
Exactly.
extra is great. So talk about basically the different ways they can donate and the different tiers here, and talk about that.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, we're doing a crowdfunding campaign. It's on the Seed and Spark website. It's called the Witch of Endor. But we'll post the link, but you can also search for it directly on the website. We're 86% funded as of filming this. So you can go ahead. There's different rewards that we have available if you're interested in that. So we have a $10 option where you just get a free playlist. There's the $25 reward where you get a digital copy of the film once it's completed to watch. We have stickers. We have posters, which are a little bit higher tier rewards. This poster is really cool. I'm actually really proud of it. Um, and you can find out, we talk more about the project on the website, where we're going to film it. We're going to film it here in Utah in the desert. Um, and yeah, there's stretch goals. If we meet our goal, we want to do more. We have higher goals to make this movie even
Oh,
better.
okay.
We have our cast set to go. Um, our lead playing King Saul, his name's Dave Martinez. He played Ammon in the Book of Mormon movies,
Oh,
or
wow.
the church, yeah, the church videos. So we're ready to go.
Wow.
And this film, at this point, the way this website works, if you reach 80% of your goal, you get the money. And so Witch of Endor is officially happening since we got 86%. So
Oh, great.
anything now we get is just helping it make it even better.
That's great. That's awesome. And so
Yeah.
basically, just so I understand that, basically whatever tier you're at, so if you're like at the $100 or $500 tier, you will also get all the other things that people on the other tiers get, plus the
Yep.
extra stuff. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So
Yeah.
basically, the more you give, you'll have access to more things that will be given to you as a thank you and everything like that. Though, so that's really interesting. And so okay, folks, here it is. We're going to have a link in the description for you to fund this program. And again, it's not only just about meeting the goal, but it's also about exceeding the goal to really help. The more, the better, the higher the production values and all that kind of stuff. And really, obviously, the more money you raise for these things, it's really cool. Now, how long of a film do you plan on this being? Is it going to be like a short?
This is a short film. Yep. So ideally, this is a proof of concept for a feature film.
Okay.
We'd love to make a feature version, but right now we're just trying to get the short made to show, what it can be.
Hmm.
Uh, we figured The Chosen can do it, so can we, There's a lot
Everybody's
of people out there.
everybody's emulating The Chosen these days.
That's right.
And so and how long do you think it will be? Like, what is a short in
Yeah.
your mind?
So the script is about 5 pages long, so it's going to be in that territory, 5, 6 minutes
Oh,
long.
so it's just okay. So it's like it's
Yeah.
not okay. So it's a short film. It's kind of it's almost like a is it almost like a proof of concept that hey,
Yes.
this could be made into a wider release type kind of film that can maybe be shown in theaters. I'm assuming that
Yep.
would be your goal. Okay, so this
Exactly.
is a great idea. This is a great concept. So this will be you can get on the ground floor of this really interesting concept of this Christian horror films. And I think that, that's really, I think it's a conversation worth having. What is a horror film? A lot of people, especially in Christian conservative communities, whether they're LDS or evangelical, kind of shun the horror genre. It's of the devil and it's all these kind of things. And of course, I grew up like during Satanic Panic days and all that kind of stuff. And and so it's a touchy subject, right? So do you sometimes get pushback from people like, "Oh, what are you doing writing horror? And what are you doing making a horror movie? I mean, isn't that kind of dealing with darkness? And don't you want to stay away from that?"
Yeah, I haven't run into a lot of that so far. I anticipate, continuing in my career that I'll get some of that for sure. There are definitely going to be people that aren't happy with this that maybe don't want to contribute. But my response to them would be that this is an adaptation directly of a story from the Bible. It is there are people who say we should focus on the positive, focus on Jesus, and I think that's definitely good. But this is a story that is a tragedy. It's about a guy who chooses not to follow God and the consequences of what happened to him, and I think there are things we can learn from those kind of stories as well.
Hmm. Yeah, I love it. I love it. That's the thing I want to say is that, there are those who feel even that are like atheists or whatever, who want to just chuck the Bible out and chuck the scriptures out. And I would say that these are important documents and that they inform our society and our culture and our values, both for good and bad in many ways, right? The
Yeah,
Bible can be used as a to be weaponized, but also can be used to do a lot of great good. I mean, it informed a lot of great political movements that were good reform movements and civil rights movements. It was all basically Christian in the sense that Dr. Martin Luther King was a Baptist minister, right? So we know that faith and stuff can do a lot of good in our society. And I feel like biblical ignorance of our scriptures is not wise. I think you need to be part of that, needs to be part of your vocabulary. Unfortunately, there's a lot of biblical illiteracy in this world. And also even look at the context of the Book of Mormon. However you think about the Book of Mormon, it exists and it does inform the conversation in many spaces as well. And being illiterate about the Book of Mormon in this space is not helpful as well. Let me ask you a question. Do you think you'll do any more other adaptations from scriptures about other stories in the horror genre? Is that have you looked at other stories as possibilities?
I've looked at a few. I'd love to. I mean, we'll see how this one goes, but yeah, I have a few in mind that we could definitely do. One of the so as I was reading the story of Saul, if we were to extend it into a feature version, there's a part a few chapters earlier where King Saul is he says God sent a demon to like t torture him, and David plays his harp. He has David play his harp for him to kind of chase the demon away, which could be part of this larger story of King Saul, which is like a little horror story in and of itself, which I thought was kind of cool. So,
Yeah,
but there's lots you could do.
yeah, no, yeah. Saul was a tormented man.
Yeah.
And in biblical times, in those periods of times, people who suffered from mental illness or torment, it was often considered to be demonic in nature. And that
Hmm.
was kind of the explanation given at the time of these things. And so that would be fascinating to maybe even include the demonology into the larger picture of the story
Yeah.
and and see maybe, yeah, no, that's really interesting. I love that you're gonna there's a lot of weird, interesting, crazy things that happen in the Bible, and sometimes people like to ignore them or push them to the side. Well, we won't talk about that, and let's just talk about the nice things. And you're right. I think we need to talk about the whole story, even the
Yeah.
parts of the Bible that make you feel uncomfortable. Those are some of the most important things. Even the hard sayings of Jesus we ignore. And I think it's really important that we engage the text fully and not just cherry pick to make ourselves feel good, but also sometimes be challenged by our own scriptures while we have a conversation with it while we're engaging it.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up the point of literacy because I think part of our goal in making this is to, expose people to this story, which they may not be familiar with. And I think we want to get people excited about the Bible, and genre stories are a way to do that. If they're not super interested in church, but maybe this story, since it's a horror story, will, generate a little interest. Maybe they'll open their Bible and, read what's in there. Who knows?
Yeah, love it. Yeah, get people to read the Bible. That's always a good
Yeah.
thing. I think it's better that we read and try to be informed rather than I think sometimes we live in a culture where we're fighting each other. And I sometimes think sometimes you just need to get offline, crack open a good book and escape from this world because it can be very difficult sometimes. And one of my biggest regrets about starting this channel is I don't get to read the books like I used to be able to. I basically read the book because I'm going to interview the author, but the
Right.
idea of leisurely, um, it's not as much as I would like, but that's okay. Books will always be a part of Mormon Book Reviews, will always be part of my life as this channel continues to grow and have an impact in this world. Um, I just want to thank everybody for just all the kindness that has been shown to me throughout this journey that I've been on. And I remember even getting attacked for having you on by a few people that weren't happy about doing a Christian horror book or a Mormon horror book. We want to hear and respect their voices too. We don't want to diss them. Like maybe some people don't feel comfortable, and that's fine. That's not in your comfort zone. That's fine. But for others who I like to be scared. I love zombies. I mean, I was Night of the Living Dead for me as a little kid was like the ultimate scary movie, right? And I
Yeah.
was a big Walking Dead fan. It kind of lost interest because I think the show just kind of went in so many
Went on
different
for too
directions.
long. Yeah.
But the first few seasons were just master. As a matter of fact, and I may have mentioned this to you before, is I think one of the most fully articulated Christian character ever on television or on the big screen was Herschel um, on The Walking Dead. I thought
Mhm.
that they really did a great job portraying an authentic Christian and not a caricature, which is unfortunately we see on a lot of TV shows that they're all hypocrites or they're all this and they're all that.
Right.
And there's actually a lot of good people of faith out there. And I thought that the character of Herschel in The Walking Dead was truly one of the most Christian characters I've ever seen on the screen.
Yeah. He was great.
I love
I
it.
stopped watching about the time he left. So
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, if you look at the way he goes out, it's martyrdom. He's a martyr, and he and but also there was a sense of completeness and in wholeness in his life at his last moment. So I think it was a beautiful arc of a
yeah.
character. I just wish the Walking Dead did more of that as it continued to grow in success. So Derek, you're a really cool dude. I think it's really awesome that you're doing this. I'm going to be in Utah next month. Maybe you can come up to the meetup that I'll be having, or when I'm speaking at the Firm Foundation. I would love to finally meet you, my homie.
Yeah.
All
That'd be
right.
great. I'll try to make it there.
And any more books? You're going to be writing any more horror books, or are you going to be focusing on the movies?
Right now I'm focusing on the movie, but there is stuff coming down the line as far as books go. So
All right. Well, we'll have you back on for that as well, and then maybe
yeah,
we'll have you back on to once for further developments of the film, or when you're going to release it. Right now,
sure.
is this going to be something you're going to release on YouTube? Is that the plan?
Eventually, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. But eventually, but early on, the people who like contributed to you will get the digital copy first, and then it eventually would be rolled out into. Will it also be on other platforms, or is YouTube probably the main platform?
Probably just YouTube, unless who knows what's gonna happen. But that's my plan. After
Okay.
Reggie's film festivals, just put it on YouTube.
All right. Well, folks, there you have it. Let's pull up that screen share one more time, Derek, so people can remember where to go if they want to make a contribution to help fund this program, The Witch of Endor, a
Yep.
biblical horror film. Is that a working title, or do you think that will be the title you'll be going by?
The Witch of Endor, I think, will be the title. The biblical horror film is just for
Yeah.
to
Got it.
help people find it, know
Okay,
what it is.
sounds
Yeah.
okay. So we are 86% there as of this taping. Let's get them to 120%, 150%, 200%. Let's make sure, because every amount of money that you give is just going to increase the quality of the production, and you do that, it increases the odds that it could be made into a full-length production. Is that correct, sir?
That's right. That's the goal.
All right. Well, hey, I'd like to hear in the comments. You tell me what you think about the Christian horror genre. Did you ever get the book This Present Darkness by Frank Peretti?
You told me about it. I haven't had a chance to check it out yet, but
Okay. Well, check
I'm
that
all,
out. That was a real popular horror genre in the evangelical world. Actually, New York Times best-selling series that he had, and definitely scared a lot of people. And I even know that George Lucas actually optioned the rights for that film back in the day, but the film was never
I
made.
didn't know
So,
that.
yeah, so it's kind of an interesting story in of itself. All right, folks. Well, tell us what you think. Remember, there's links in the description to help financially support this production. Also, there are links in the description for those of you who'd like to financially support us here at Mormon Book Reviews. Couldn't do it without you. We do greatly appreciate those who make contributions to us on Venmo, on PayPal, on Patreon, and of course, we have our online store, mormonbookreviews.com, which we might be transitioning off our website and moving our store to YouTube. You got to look into that. But for now, mormonbookreviews.com is where you can go to our merch store, but we might be transitioning to a merch store on YouTube. All right, folks. Thanks again, Derek, for coming on.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
And folks, you just have yourself a great day. And remember, the most important thing is this: all the voices of the restoration will be heard here on Mormon Book Reviews.